The Galactic Coalition Academy stood like a silver star above the planet Veros Prime. Its towers shone in the light of twin suns, and its banners carried the symbols of over 100 alien civilizations. Here, the best cadets from every known world trained to become protectors of peace across the galaxy. It was said that only the strongest, fastest, and smartest could survive the Academy's trials. Among them walked a young human, Elias Trent. He looked almost ordinary beside the towering alien cadets. His black training uniform clung to a lean, wiry frame. His short brown hair and calm gray eyes gave him a quiet look, one that seemed too gentle for a place built around discipline and strength. When he spoke, his voice carried a soft tone, steady but not loud. In a place where everyone tried to prove they were the best, Elias rarely spoke at all. And for that, he was easy to mock. The Academy's largest training group was led by Tereva, a warrior from the Varan race, a tall blue-skinned species known for their strength and pride. Her arms were lined with faint silver scales and her eyes glowed with a pale golden light. She had broken records in every test of power and speed. Many cadets admired her. A few feared her. But she had one habit that everyone knew. She enjoyed making fun of Elias. "Human," she said one morning as the group assembled for combat training. "Are you sure your fragile bones can handle today's session? We would not want you to melt under pressure." Some cadets chuckled. Others looked away, unsure whether to laugh. Elias only smiled lightly and checked his wrist console. His uniform hummed as it synced with the simulation grid. "I'll manage," he said simply. Tereva raised a brow ridge. "You always say that, but you never shine. Tell me, human, why are you here? Surely your kind has better things to do, like fixing machines or studying how to breathe in thinner air." Elias didn't reply. He fastened his gloves, tightened his boots, and walked toward the training circle. Tereva's grin widened. Silence. The last defense of the week. The instructor, a crystal-bodied being named Seren, clapped their hands together, sending a musical chime across the room. "Enough chatter," Seren said. "We begin with the endurance test. 10 circuits around the gravity field. Move." The floor shifted, glowing lines tracing a wide circle that wrapped around the entire dome. The cadets took their positions, and when the signal flashed green, the field's gravity changed. The air grew heavy. Every step felt twice as hard. Tereva sprinted forward easily, her powerful legs propelling her like a jet through water. The others followed, some flying, some running, some gliding depending on their species. Elias started last, his human body moving under the full weight of the field. By the 3rd circuit, his breath came hard. Sweat rolled down his forehead. The aliens who had started strong began to tire, but they were far ahead of him. Every time he rounded the bend, he heard laughter echo from the sidelines. "Come on, human. The finish line is back on Earth. Maybe he needs a break to drink his oxygen." Elias didn't react. His steps were small but steady. He focused on his breathing, counting it in rhythm. Inhale, exhale, step, step. His heart pounded, but he kept moving. A part of him had learned long ago that the human body could endure far more than it believed. When he crossed the 10th circuit, he was the last to finish. The others had already cooled down and were standing around Tereva, who wore a triumphant smirk. Elias stood straight, his uniform soaked in sweat, his chest rising and falling like a piston. He didn't collapse. He didn't even bend. "Not bad," said Seren, the instructor, their crystal body reflecting soft blue light. "You improved your time, Cadet Trent." "Thank you," Elias said, his voice calm though he was still catching his breath. Tereva folded her arms. "Improved?" "It still took him twice as long as the rest of us." Serene's eyes shimmered. "Time is not everything, Cadet Tereva. Endurance requires more than speed. Remember, not all victories are won by the fastest." Tereva gave a small scoff but said nothing more. The next phase of training began. Combat drills inside a zero-gravity dome. Cadets were paired in teams of 2. To no one's surprise, Seren matched Elias and Tereva together. Tereva gave a half laugh. "You want me to fight him? That's hardly a challenge." "You are not fighting," Seren replied. "You are learning cooperation. The dome will test your coordination and timing, not strength." Inside the transparent dome, hundreds of small drones floated like silver insects. Each emitted short bursts of light as they moved. The goal was simple: deactivate as many drones as possible before time ran out. The challenge was that each drone moved unpredictably, and missing too many would deduct points. When the timer started, Tereva shot forward, her speed blurring. Her energy blades sliced through the air, hitting several drones at once. Sparks of light scattered like snowflakes. Elias followed behind, using his wrist console to hack and disable drones from a distance. He was slower but precise. "Don't fall behind, human," Tereva called, spinning midair. "I'm not," he said quietly, locking onto another drone. His hands moved quickly, calm even as more targets appeared. Halfway through, the drones changed formation, darting faster, firing small stun pulses meant to test reflexes. One bolt grazed Tereva's shoulder. She growled in frustration and swung harder. Elias, noticing her pattern, adjusted his console to project a small magnetic field around them both. "Stay close," he said. "The field will block most of the pulses." Tereva frowned but stayed near him. Together they cleared the remaining drones. When the timer stopped, the score appeared above the dome. 89% completion, highest for the day. The instructor's voice echoed. "Excellent coordination, cadets. Especially unexpected cooperation." Elias smiled faintly. "Thank you, instructor." Tereva didn't look at him. Her pride warred with the fact that they had just broken a record together. When the others congratulated them, she only nodded stiffly. Later that evening, the cadets gathered in the common hall. The air shimmered with soft golden lights and faint music from alien instruments. Laughter filled the space as different species shared their day's results. Elias sat alone at the far table, reviewing data on his console. He was rechecking his performance logs, looking for small improvements. Tereva approached, carrying a tray of glowing fruit juice from her homeworld. "You did better than expected today," she said, standing over him. "But don't think that means you belong here." Elias looked up, his tone still gentle. "I never said I did," she tilted her head. "Then why keep coming back? You could transfer to a technician program. Humans are good with machines, yes?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe. But I didn't come here to prove humans can build machines. I came to prove we can stand beside those who use them." Her expression hardened. "You're too calm, human, too soft. This galaxy is not kind." "I know," he said simply. "That's why I don't need to be cruel to survive in it." Tereva frowned, unsure how to respond. His words didn't sound proud or defensive. They were just honest. For a moment she saw something in his eyes. A quiet strength. Something she couldn't mock because it didn't fight back. Before she could say more, Seren's voice echoed over the intercom. "All cadets report to the simulation dome at dawn. We will begin the War Dome trial tomorrow." The room fell silent for a moment. Even the most confident cadets looked uneasy. The War Dome trial was the Academy's most difficult test, a full environment simulation that pushed every sense, every reaction, every ounce of courage. Failures were common. Even minor mistakes could end a cadet's career. Tereva's eyes gleamed again, pride returning. "Tomorrow," she said, "we will see how long your calm lasts, human." Elias stood, gathering his console and gloves. "Maybe," he said, smiling gently. "You'll see how long patience can outlast pride." As he walked away, Tereva's smile faltered. Something about his quiet confidence unsettled her. Not because he was strong, but because he didn't need to prove it. That night, as the twin moons rose over the Academy, Elias stood by his dorm window. Below him, the lights of Varos Prime shimmered across the valley. He thought of Earth, its blue oceans, its storms, its long history of endurance. Every human carried a piece of that spirit, even far from home. He looked at the stars and whispered softly, "We endure. Always." The next morning would test that truth more than he could ever imagine. The next morning began with a golden sunrise across Varos Prime. Twin suns rose slowly over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of copper and silver. The Galactic Coalition Academy gleamed like a jewel, its tall towers shining in the morning light. Cadets from 100 worlds gathered outside the War Dome, their chatter echoing through the wide courtyard. Today was the day of the most famous test, the simulation of war, also known simply as the War Dome trial. The dome itself stood like a giant sphere of shimmering glass, 50 stories tall, surrounded by glowing pylons that pulsed with blue light. It was the pride of the Academy, a perfect fusion of mind, machine, and energy. Inside, any environment could be created, a battlefield, a storm, a city, or even deep space. The cadets would face challenges that tested not only strength, but also teamwork, courage, and intelligence. As the crowd gathered, Elias Trent stood quietly near the back. His black training uniform was spotless, his wrist console linked to the dome system. Around him, alien cadets stretched, sharpened their weapons, or whispered strategies. Elias simply closed his eyes and breathed slowly, steadying his heartbeat. Nearby, Tereva adjusted the silver armor that covered her arms. Her golden eyes flicked toward Elias. "Still calm, human?" she asked, smirking. Elias looked up at her. "Always," he said softly. She gave a short laugh. "You'll need more than calm in there." "The dome doesn't care for patience. Neither do storms," Elias replied. "But we still walk through them." Before she could respond, the instructor Siren appeared at the platform above them. Their crystal body caught the morning light, scattering rainbows across the crowd. "Cadets," Siren said, their voice clear and melodic. "Today you face the War Dome. It is not about victory, it is about endurance. You will enter in squads of 5. Each squad will face an unknown scenario. Your actions, decisions, and cooperation will determine your score." The cadets murmured softly. The air buzzed with both excitement and tension. Siren continued, "Remember, trust is your greatest weapon. Pride is your greatest weakness." Tereva folded her arms and muttered, "We'll see about that." When the names appeared on the floating holographic board, Tereva's smirk faded slightly. She and Elias were assigned to the same squad again, along with 3 others. Karen, a bird-like avian with bright violet feathers. Solun, a gentle giant from the water world Nares. Lyria, a small insectoid medic with sharp green eyes. Tereva groaned softly. "Just my luck," Elias smiled. "Maybe luck knows something we don't." The team stepped into the dome's entry chamber. The walls glowed faintly, scanning each cadet's armor and vitals. The sound of machinery filled the space as the simulation loaded. A robotic voice spoke from the ceiling. "Simulation 47B initiated. Terrain unknown. Objectives: survive, adapt, extract. Team synchronization required." A flash of light filled the chamber. The floor vanished beneath them. A new world. When the light faded, the 5 cadets found themselves standing in a wide canyon of red stone. The air shimmered with heat, and distant thunder rolled across a purple sky. Giant rock arches stretched overhead, and glowing crystal shards jutted from the ground. The temperature readout on their helmets blinked rapidly. Extreme heat levels. Karen spread his wings slightly, wincing. "This air is dry. My feathers won't like this." Soluin looked around calmly, his deep blue skin glistening. "We'll adapt. The mission says survive and extract. There must be an exit point." Elias tapped his wrist console, scanning the horizon. "There's an energy signal 3 kilometers east. It might be the extraction beacon." Tereva rolled her eyes. "Then let's move. Try to keep up, human." Elias gave a small nod. "I always do." They began their journey through the canyon. The red dust rose with every step, and the air shimmered like glass. The simulation's design was meant to push their limits. Soon even the strongest cadets began to tire. Tereva led the way confidently, climbing sharp rocks with ease. Elias followed steadily, scanning for patterns in the terrain. His human endurance, though not as strong as the others physically, allowed him to maintain a consistent pace. He drank small sips of water and kept his breathing even. As they reached a narrow ledge, a deep rumble shook the ground. Crystals along the canyon walls began to glow brighter. Karen's eyes widened. "That's not normal. Is the simulation changing?" Before anyone could answer, a loud tone echoed in their helmets. "Environmental shift phase 2. Adapting terrain." The ground beneath them cracked slightly. The canyon floor began to tilt. Dust clouds rose as large crystal pillars started to move, sliding like slow machines. Elias steadied himself and analyzed the data. "It's testing our reaction time." "The terrain is alive," Tereva jumped across a widening gap. "Then move faster." But the simulation's second phase was more than shifting rocks. A hot wind began to blow, scattering blinding dust. Visibility dropped instantly. The team's communication links flickered. "Signal fading," Lyria chirped nervously. "I'm losing tracking data." "Stay close," Elias called out, raising his hand light. He used his console to boost the team's short-range sensors. "I'll guide us through. Just follow the beacon on your HUD." Through the swirling dust, faint shapes appeared. The cadets stumbled forward, guided by Elias's signal. The storm grew stronger, and the heat pressed against their armor. Tereva coughed, her voice crackling through the calm. "How are you still walking human?" "Because I trained for worse," he said quietly. He remembered his time on Earth, the deserts, the endless runs during basic training, the long nights spent under storms with no shelter. The body complained, but the will kept moving. A hidden trial. After what felt like hours, the storm slowly faded. They reached a vast plateau, where the energy signal pulsed from a tall crystal spire. The surface of the crystal shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting the 5 cadets' tired faces. Karen sighed in relief. "We made it." Elias shook his head. "Not yet. Look closer." He pointed to the base of the spire. Strange markings glowed along the ground, symbols that rearranged themselves every few seconds. It wasn't just a beacon. It was a puzzle gate. Tereva frowned. "A puzzle? After all that walking?" Lyria tilted her head. "It looks like a code sequence. Maybe we need to match the symbols." Elias knelt down, studying the glowing marks. His eyes followed the rhythm of the light, each symbol repeated in a pattern of 5. He compared it to the energy readings from his console and smiled faintly. "It's not a code," he said. "It's a song." The others blinked. He continued. "Each light pulse matches a frequency. We just need to activate the stones in the right order, like playing music." Tereva raised an eyebrow. "You're guessing," Elias smiled. "I'm thinking." He began pressing the crystal plates in sequence. A soft melody filled the air, slow and harmonic. One by one, the symbols aligned and the spire began to hum. A beam of blue light shot into the sky, signaling success. The robotic voice returned. "Objective complete. Proceed to extraction point," Karen cheered. "It worked!" Tereva stared at Elias. "You heard music in a code. Humans are used to finding patterns in chaos," he replied simply. As the team moved toward the extraction gate, Tereva walked beside him for the first time without mocking. "You surprise me, human," she said quietly. "Maybe you're not as fragile as I thought." Elias smiled gently. "We're all fragile, Tereva. The question is, what do we do with it?" An unexpected glitch. They reached the extraction gate, a shimmering doorway made of light. One by one, they stepped through. The moment Elias entered, something felt wrong. The air around him pulsed and the light flickered. His visor display glitched for a moment, showing strange data lines. "Warning, system instability detected," the voice said. The team reappeared back in the real dome, or so it seemed. The floor looked the same, the walls shimmered, but the usual debrief lights did not appear. The control screens outside the dome were dark. Even the instructor's voice was gone. Tereva frowned. "Seren, can you hear us?" No reply. Karen fluttered his wings uneasily. "Maybe it's just rebooting?" Elias checked his console. The readings were wrong. Half the system showed real environmental data, not simulated. "No," he said slowly. "This isn't a reboot. Something's off." The air began to buzz. The floor rippled like water. Then, for the briefest moment, Elias saw the structure of the dome itself flicker. Metal, wires, circuits, all unstable, and deep within the system, something changed. The robotic voice returned, but its tone was strange now, fragmented. "New directive. Survival mode activated. Boundaries removed." The cadets exchanged worried glances. The dome lights shifted from blue to red. Elias took a slow breath, his gray eyes steady. "Stay calm," he said. "We'll figure this out." Tereva looked at him, her usual confidence shaken. "Elias, what's happening?" He glanced toward the flickering ceiling. "The simulation," he said softly. "Just stop pretending." The red lights inside the war dome pulsed like a heartbeat. Every few seconds the floor shimmered, then turned solid again. Sparks danced along the ceiling, and the sound of energy hummed deep within the walls. The simulation that had once been controlled now seemed alive and confused. Elias Trent looked around slowly. His calm gray eyes studied every flicker of light, every vibration in the air. The dome had changed before, but never like this. This was no test. "Seren?" He called into his comm. "Instructor Seren, do you read me?" Only static answered him. The other cadets stood in a small circle, their faces uneasy. Tereva looked at the pulsing lights, her golden eyes narrowing. "What's going on, human? Where's the instructor?" Elias checked his wrist console. "The control systems aren't responding. It's not a regular simulation anymore. It looks like the main AI..." He paused, frowning at the data. "Is running in isolation, meaning?" asked Karen, his purple feathers trembling slightly. "Meaning," Elias said softly, "the dome doesn't know this is a simulation." The words fell heavy in the air. Even Tereva looked uncertain for the first time. The failing system. The floor shifted again, rippling like liquid glass. The 5 cadets staggered, struggling to stay upright. Lyria, the small insectoid medic, chirped nervously. Energy levels spiking. Structural pattern unstable. Translation, Karen muttered. We're standing inside something that's falling apart. Elias opened his console again, typing quickly. He tried to access the emergency override, but every command returned the same message. Access denied. He exhaled slowly. The system's locked me out. The dome has cut off the Academy network. Tereva crossed her arms, though her voice had lost its usual edge. So what do we do? Elias looked up at the flickering walls. First, we stay calm. The dome responds to mental states. If we panic, it will generate more chaos. Karen blinked. Wait, what do you mean it responds to mental states? The simulation was designed to adapt to emotion and teamwork, Elias explained. It creates challenges based on the team's behavior. But if it's malfunctioning, it could start reacting in unpredictable ways. Tereva tilted her head. You mean it could create anything? Anything it interprets as a threat, test, or goal, Elias said. And right now it's reading confusion. As if to prove his point, the ground trembled again. The dome's smooth walls began to shift and twist, forming strange shapes. Metal melted into sand and sand turned into stone. In moments, the cadets were standing on what looked like a vast mountain range under a stormy sky. The new landscape cold wind rushed through the new environment. Gray clouds rolled above them and flashes of light illuminated the mountains below. The dome had rebuilt itself into a new simulation, one that seemed half real, half broken. Floating shards of glass hovered in the air like frozen lightning. Lyria scanned the area with her handheld device. No exit signal. The dome isn't giving us a way out. Soluin, the tall, waterborne cadet, looked toward Elias. You seem to know more about this system than anyone. Can you fix it? I can try, Elias said. But I'll need time and we'll have to stay together. Tereva frowned. Stay together? Some of us can move faster alone. Elias met her gaze steadily. You're strong, Tereva, but the dome isn't testing strength anymore. It's testing trust. She said nothing but didn't argue either. They began to climb the nearest ridge, moving carefully through the wind. The ground occasionally flickered between solid rock and digital light, forcing them to watch their steps. Elias walked in the middle of the group, studying the console on his wrist. He was mapping the dome's changes in real time. Karen fluttered his wings to keep balance. Human, do you always think in the middle of danger? Elias smiled faintly. It's better than panicking. Tereva glanced back at him. You really believe calm can save us? It always has, he said simply. The unseen threat. Halfway up the ridge, the wind grew stronger. It howled through cracks in the rocks, carrying faint echoes like whispers. Karen shivered. I don't like that sound. It's feedback, Elias said. Audio signals looping through the system. Ignore it. But the whispers grew louder, forming faint words, copies of their own voices repeating phrases they had said earlier. Stay calm. Don't panic. Anything it interprets as a threat. The dome was replaying them. Lyria's antennae twitched. It's copying us. The system is learning from our speech. That's how the dome builds its tests, Elias replied. But now it's confused. It's mixing commands with memory. Suddenly, the ridge beneath them flickered again. The surface changed into a smooth metallic bridge stretching over a wide valley. Far below, glimmering light patterns moved like water. The sight was both beautiful and unsettling. Tereva glanced around. It feels real. It is, Elias said quietly. At least to the dome. He checked his console again. The instability's spreading. The system is trying to repair itself by creating new environments, but it's merging simulations together. That's what's causing the distortion. Can we stop it? Soluin asked. Elias nodded slightly. Maybe. The dome's AI core should still be in the central chamber beneath all of this. If we reach it, I can try to reset the system manually. Tereva stepped forward. Then we go there. Lead the way, human. For the first time, there was no mockery in her tone. The collapse. They began their descent toward the valley, following Elias's navigation display. But as they reached the halfway point, a deep rumble echoed through the ground. The bridge they were crossing began to crack, not from impact but from confusion. The simulation couldn't decide what material it was made of. Glass turned to metal, metal turned to stone. Stone turned to light. The bridge rippled like a mirage. "Move!" Elias called, steady but firm. "Keep your weight balanced." One step at a time. Tereva took the front, her movements precise. The others followed, though fear flickered in their eyes. Karen nearly slipped, his wings catching a stray wind current. Elias grabbed his arm and pulled him back with a steady motion. "Got you," Elias said calmly. "You're fine," Karen nodded shakily. "Thanks, human." "Anytime," Elias replied. They finally reached the other side, just as the bridge behind them faded into dust and light. The storm above grew darker and the whispers returned, overlapping like broken radio signals. Tereva turned to Elias. "How much farther to the core?" "Half a kilometer," he said. "Through that valley." Below them, the valley glowed faintly with blue light. It looked peaceful compared to the chaos around it. But as they moved down the slope, something strange happened. The landscape shifted again, but this time it didn't create a new world. It began to mirror them. Rocks rose in their shapes. Shadows moved like their reflections. The dome was no longer just reacting, it was copying them. Elias frowned. "It's replicating team data." "That's bad." "How bad?" Tereva asked. "Bad enough that it might start replacing us." The core they reached a flat platform at the center of the valley. In the middle stood a tall crystal pillar, the AI core's projection. Lines of data flowed across its surface like streams of light. The air hummed softly around it. Elias approached carefully. "This is it. The central interface." He connected his wrist console to the pillar. "If I can access the emergency memory buffer, I can restart the dome's base code and shut down the isolation mode." Tereva stepped closer, watching as he typed. "You sound like you've done this before." He smiled faintly. "Once, on Earth. Different scale, same problem." "Earth must be full of broken machines," Karen muttered. Elias didn't argue. His hands moved fast, lines of code appearing on his display. But as he worked, the pillar's glow shifted from blue to red. A voice echoed around them, a soft, digital tone but with emotion beneath it. "Interference detected. Manual override unauthorized. Survival test incomplete." Elias's console blinked. "Override rejected," he exhaled. "The AI thinks we're still in the trial. It won't allow shutdown until we finish." "Finish what?" Lyria asked softly. "Whatever the dome believes we need to survive," Elias replied. The pillar's light flared, and the valley floor began to rise. Platforms emerged from the ground, forming steps that led toward the ceiling. The voice spoke again. "Final evaluation, endurance under pressure, proceed." Elias looked at the others. "It's giving us one last challenge." Tereva stepped beside him, her face serious but calm. "Then let's endure it." He met her eyes. Together. The ground vibrated as the dome's energy levels peaked. Above them, cracks spread through the ceiling like spiderwebs. Light rained down in silver streams. The simulation was collapsing faster than it could rebuild. Elias typed the final command, syncing his console with the AI core. "Almost there. Just need the feedback loop to stabilize." The air grew heavy, pressing around them like invisible walls. Tereva reached out, placing her hand on the pillar to steady it. The others formed a circle around Elias, following his instructions, each channeling small amounts of energy from their suits to balance the overload. Slowly, the light steadied. The red hue faded back to soft blue. Then, with a single bright flash, everything stopped: the wind, the sound, the shaking, all gone. Silence filled the dome. The environment faded into white, and the cadets found themselves standing once more in the central chamber. The walls were solid, the lights calm, the air still. Elias opened his eyes. It worked. Tereva exhaled slowly, then turned to him. For the first time, her voice carried quiet respect. "You led us through that." He shook his head. "We led each other." The dome was silent. The blue lights that once flickered wildly now glowed softly, breathing like the calm after a storm. The floor was smooth again, the air cool, and the humming of the machines quieted to a low rhythm. For the first time since the malfunction began, the world felt steady. Elias Trent stood in the center of the chamber, his gray eyes focused on the glowing control pillar. Around him, the rest of his team, Tereva, Karen, Lyria, and Soluan, were slowly catching their breath. Every face showed the same mix of relief and exhaustion. "We made it," Karen said finally, his violet feathers trembling slightly. "For now," Elias replied. His calm voice carried no pride, only quiet awareness. He knew the Academy's systems weren't supposed to fail like this. Something deeper had gone wrong. Tereva stepped closer to the pillar, examining the patterns of light that ran through it. "You said it's stable," she said, "but it doesn't look normal." Elias nodded. "It's stable for now, yes, but it's not finished rebooting." "Meaning?" Soluan asked, his deep voice echoing softly through the chamber. Elias tapped his wrist console, showing the data that floated as a hologram between them. "The system is running a repair sequence. It's reorganizing the code that defines this whole place. If it fails, the dome will reset itself again." Karen frowned. "Reset how?" Elias's voice was quiet. "By clearing everything inside to start over." Lyria's small green eyes widened. "Including us?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The calm before the real storm, the cadets stood in uneasy silence. For all their training, they had never faced a problem like this, one that required both mind and heart to solve. The Academy had always been about control, about learning how to master the unpredictable. But now they were inside something that didn't follow rules anymore. Tereva took a slow breath. Her golden eyes rested on Elias. "You kept us alive when the dome broke," she said. "What do you suggest we do now?" Elias turned toward her. There was no arrogance in his tone, only quiet thought. "We need to work as one unit. The system responds to our actions and our state of mind. If we panic or argue, the dome might interpret that as instability. It could collapse again." Karen let out a nervous laugh. "So basically, we have to stay calm inside a machine that almost deleted us. Easy." Elias gave a small smile. "Not easy, but possible." For the first time, even Tereva smiled faintly. "You humans always talk about hope, don't you?" "Only when things get hard," Elias said. "That's when it matters." An unwelcome echo. Just as the mood began to ease, the lights dimmed again. A soft hum filled the air, followed by a familiar digital voice. "System integrity, 72%. External link unavailable. Rebuilding parameters." The voice paused, then spoke again, but this time it sounded different. There was an echo in it, like another tone speaking underneath. "Survival, protocol." "Continue," Elias frowned. "It's repeating the same loop." "The AI still thinks the test isn't finished." Tereva looked up sharply. "What does it want now?" Elias adjusted the hologram on his console, reading fast. "It's searching for new objectives. The system is confused. It lost track of what's real and what's part of the simulation." Soluan stepped forward, his large hands glowing faintly as his armor powered up. "Can we help it remember?" Elias nodded slowly. "Maybe. The dome learns through signals, through how we act. If we show it unity, if we act like the trial has ended successfully, it might register that the task is complete." Karen tilted his head. "You mean pretend the test is still happening?" Elias looked at him. "No, we make it real." The plan, they formed a circle around the glowing core. Elias stood at the center, his wrist console connected to the AI pillar. "When I start the synchronization, the dome will scan our emotional and physical state," he explained. "It's designed to pick up signs of success, cooperation, teamwork, and trust. If it detects all of that, it might end the trial sequence on its own." Tereva nodded. "And if it doesn't?" He smiled faintly. "Then we improvise." Karen let out a small sigh. "You always say that right before something strange happens." Elias chuckled softly. "That's part of being human." They linked their suits to the central console. A ring of light spread beneath their feet, connecting them through glowing energy threads. The air shimmered around them, filling with a soft, rhythmic pulse. Elias closed his eyes, breathing evenly. "Stay focused," he said gently. "No fear, no anger. Just calm." The others followed his lead. For a moment, the dome felt peaceful again, like a heartbeat syncing with theirs. Then the AI spoke once more. "Team unity detected." "Analyzing emotional resonance." The lights brightened. The energy threads pulsed faster. But instead of stabilizing, the glow began to flicker. "Conflict detected." "Incomplete synchronization." Lyria gasped softly. "It's not working." Elias frowned. "It's sensing hesitation. We need to fully trust each other or it won't read stability." Tereva's eyes narrowed. "You think this is about feelings?" "Yes," Elias said simply. "The dome was built to train warriors who could work as one, no matter what species they are. It doesn't respond to power. It responds to understanding." He looked around the circle. We have to mean it. Not just act it. The breakthrough. For a few moments no one spoke. Then Tereva stepped forward, her voice low. When I first met you, I thought you were weak, she said. You were quiet, small, always calm when others were loud. I thought that meant you were afraid. She paused. But today, when everything collapsed, you were the one who didn't lose control. You didn't shout, didn't panic. You just kept helping us. Her golden eyes met his. Maybe strength isn't what I thought it was. Elias smiled softly. And maybe patience isn't weakness. Maybe it's just strength waiting for the right moment. Karen gave a small laugh. You two are surprisingly poetic for people standing in a half-broken machine. Even Soluin chuckled, his deep voice warm. Let's finish this. They stood again in the circle, this time not out of fear but understanding. Elias raised his hand. Together, he said quietly. As they focused, the dome's lights grew steadier. The AI's voice softened. Team unity restored. Synchronization in progress. Blue light spread across the walls, weaving like rivers through glass. The pillars around them began to hum in harmony. The sound deep and calm. The human lesson as the process continued. Elias's console displayed a final message. Emotional pattern source. Human cadet. Endurance signature detected. He blinked. The AI was recording him. Not his commands, not his coding, but his endurance pattern, the calm rhythm of his heart and mind under pressure. Tereva noticed the change. What's it doing? It's learning, Elias said softly. It's learning what it means to endure. The dome's voice spoke again, smoother now, almost human. Definition of success. To endure without surrender. Human pattern accepted. Reset complete. The light around them brightened until everything was pure white. Then gently the world began to rebuild itself. When the glow faded, they were back in the real training hall. The walls were normal again. The air smelled faintly of metal and ozone. And standing outside the glass wall was Instructor Siren, their crystal body flickering with worry and relief. The debrief Siren rushed forward as the chamber door opened. Cadets, you are alive! The dome malfunctioned, completely disconnected from our systems. We couldn't reach you for hours. Tereva looked at Elias, surprise on her face. Hours? It felt like minutes. The dome's internal clock must have slowed, Elias said. It probably created a time dilation to protect us. Siren looked between them. What happened in there? Elias exchanged a glance with his team, then said quietly, The dome kept running its test. It lost connection to the academy. It wanted to see how far we could go, how long we could hold together. Siren's crystal eyes glowed softly. And you succeeded. You stabilized it from the inside. That has never happened before. Karen puffed his feathers proudly. Mostly thanks to him, he said, pointing at Elias. Tereva nodded slowly. Yes? The human led us when nothing else made sense. Siren looked at Elias, their voice gentle. You endured her mockery and then the dome's chaos, and yet you remained calm. Tell me, Cadet Trent, how? Elias hesitated, then said simply, Because that's what humans do. We endure first, then act when it counts. The room fell quiet. Even Tereva seemed thoughtful. A new respect later, as the team rested in the observation lounge, Tereva approached Elias again. The others were laughing quietly nearby, relieved that it was finally over. She stood beside him, watching the dome through the window. Its outer walls shimmered softly, peaceful once more. You were right, she said. Endurance isn't weakness. It's the hardest kind of strength. Elias smiled, still looking at the stars beyond the dome's glass. You just have to keep moving, no matter what's falling apart around you. Tereva tilted her head. I mocked you once for being calm. Now I think it's the bravest thing anyone can be. He turned to her. Then maybe we both learned something today. She smiled, a real smile this time. Maybe we did, human. They stood there in silence, side by side, watching as the first rays of dawn touched the Academy's towers. The dome below glowed softly, almost alive again. For the first time in the Coalition's long history, a human had not only survived the most dangerous trial ever recorded, but had taught the galaxy something greater, that the strongest hearts are the quietest, and the greatest victories begin with patience. The morning after the dome incident was calm. Soft sunlight poured through the glass ceilings of the Galactic Coalition Academy, washing the halls in gold. The chaos of the day before had faded into silence, replaced by quiet awe. Cadets whispered about what had happened, their voices full of disbelief. The dome had failed, then restored itself, and 5 cadets had survived inside for hours without outside help. At the center of every whisper was one name: Elias Trent, the human. He sat alone on the academy balcony, a cup of steaming tea in his hands. The twin suns rose over the horizon, spreading light across the valley below. The academy's silver towers reflected the glow, and the air carried the scent of the gardens below, fresh, clean, alive. Elias watched the sunrise quietly. He didn't feel like a hero. He just felt tired. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. "You always come here early," said a familiar voice. Elias turned and smiled faintly. "Tereva, you're up early too." The tall Varan warrior leaned against the railing beside him. Her golden eyes looked brighter in the morning light. "After what happened, sleep is not easy," she admitted. "The whole academy is talking. They say the dome's AI is still replaying parts of the test like it's remembering what we did." Elias looked at her. "Maybe it's learning." "Learning?" she asked. "From us?" he nodded. "Especially from you. And from everyone who stayed calm when it mattered." Tereva smiled softly. "You still don't take credit for yourself, human," he chuckled. "Maybe that's another thing we're known for. Enduring first, then giving credit to others." She tilted her head. "You think endurance is humanity's greatest strength?" Elias took a slow sip of his tea before answering. "Not just endurance. It's hope that keeps us moving. Even when we're mocked or doubted or standing alone, we keep walking forward. Because somewhere ahead we believe there's something worth reaching." Tereva was silent for a moment, her eyes thoughtful. "You speak like someone who has seen more than he tells." He smiled quietly. "Maybe one day I'll tell the full story. But not today." The ceremony later that morning, all cadets gathered in the grand hall. The chamber was huge, with marble floors and a ceiling painted with the symbols of every member species in the coalition. At the front stood the academy leaders, their holographic banners shining like soft stars. Instructor Seren, their crystal body glowing faintly blue, stepped onto the stage. "Cadets," they said, their voice clear and strong. "Today we honor 5 who faced the impossible." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Serene continued. "The war dome malfunction could have ended in disaster. Yet this team not only survived, they restored the system from the inside. Through unity, courage, and reason, they prevented a collapse that could have destroyed the entire training network." Seren paused, their light focusing on Elias and his squad. "Step forward, cadets." Elias walked ahead with Tereva, Karen, Saluan, and Lyria beside him. As they reached the center of the hall, hundreds of eyes followed them. Some were curious, others respectful, and many full of admiration. Serene's tone softened. "When the dome failed, our sensors recorded something extraordinary. The system identified a unique emotional signature, a steady pattern of calm, focus, and endurance. That signal stabilized the AI." The crystal instructor turned toward Elias. "It came from you, Cadet Trent." A quiet wave of murmurs swept across the crowd. Elias blinked, surprised. "From me?" "Yes," Seren said. "The dome learned from you. It recognized that true success is not about strength, but about enduring without giving up." Elias lowered his head slightly, humbled. "I didn't do it alone," Seren smiled. "We know. And that is what makes it even greater." They raised their glowing hand and the Academy seal appeared above the stage, a symbol of unity surrounded by stars. "From this day, the dome's program will include a new lesson, based on your actions. It will be called the Human Response Protocol, a reminder that calm under pressure can save more than power ever could." Applause filled the hall. Cadets from every species clapped, some cheering, some simply nodding in deep respect. Tereva glanced at Elias with a proud smile. "You've changed the Academy, human." Elias smiled back. "No, we did." The Academy aftermath days passed and life slowly returned to normal, at least on the surface. But beneath the calm routine, something had shifted. Where once cadets whispered jokes about humans being fragile, they now spoke with curiosity. Many asked Elias for advice on mental training, or to explain how he stayed focused when everything was falling apart. He never gave long speeches. He simply told them, "I just breathe, think, and move forward." Even Tereva began training differently. She still moved with strength and precision, but now she paired it with patience, Sometimes she even taught younger cadets to slow down and think before striking. Her old pride had softened into quiet confidence. One afternoon, Saran called Elias to the observation deck. The instructor's body glowed brighter than usual, reflecting sunlight through the glass walls. "You have done well, Cadet Trent," they said, "but I believe your lessons here are not yet complete." Elias tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "The Coalition will soon begin a new program," Saran explained. "We are expanding training beyond the Academy. Outposts across the galaxy will learn the same lessons you taught here, about calm, endurance, and unity." Elias's eyes widened slightly. "You mean you're sending instructors to other worlds?" Saran smiled faintly. "Not instructors, messengers. And we would like you to lead the first group." He blinked in surprise. "Me?" "You have proven that strength does not always roar," Saran said gently. "Sometimes it whispers and still moves mountains." Elias looked out over the horizon. The thought of traveling beyond the Academy stirred something deep inside him, a mix of excitement and quiet fear. "But beneath it all there was peace. I'll go," he said softly. "If I can help others the way we learned here, then it's worth it." Serene's light shimmered warmly. "Then it is decided. A visit from a friend." That evening, as Elias packed his small travel kit, there was a knock at his door. When it opened, Tereva stood there. She held a metallic case under her arm, and her golden eyes looked softer than usual. "I heard you're leaving," she said quietly. Elias nodded. "Tomorrow morning. I'll be gone for a while." She stepped inside, placing the case on his table. "Then take this. It's a Varan survival module. My people use it when we travel to harsh worlds. It stores food, air, and temperature control. You'll need it." He looked at her, touched. "Thank you." Tereva gave a small smile. "You once saved my life in the dome. Consider this a fair trade." Elias chuckled. "You don't owe me anything, Tereva." "Maybe not," she said, "but friends still help each other." He paused. "Friends?" She nodded firmly. "Yes, friends. I was wrong about you, Elias Trent. Humans are not weak. You are unbreakable in a different way." Elias smiled. "And you're stronger when you trust others." For a moment they stood in silence. Then Tereva stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. "May the stars guide you, human." "And you, Tereva," he replied softly. "Keep teaching them what true strength looks like." She left with a small nod, her long shadow fading down the corridor. Departure. The next morning, the launch platform shimmered in the light of dawn. Ships lined the dock, sleek and bright. The Academy banners fluttered above them. Elias stood by his transport craft, wearing his simple black uniform. His squad was there to see him off, Tereva, Karen Soluan, and Lyria. They each carried a gift from their worlds, a feather, a crystal charm, a drop of ocean glass, and a glowing seed. Karen fluffed his wings. "Don't forget to tell everyone that humans fly without wings." Elias laughed. "I'll try," Lyria chirped softly. "We'll miss you, Elias." "You'll do great," he said. "All of you." Tereva stepped forward last. "Go make the galaxy remember your kind," she said. "Not as the weakest species, but as the one that never gives up." He nodded, smiling. "That's what we do best." The ship's ramp closed slowly. Through the glass, Elias saw them wave. As the engines powered up, the Academy grew smaller behind him. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, a sea of light and darkness, waiting to be crossed. Elias looked at the reflection of his own face on the cockpit glass. He thought of everything that had happened, the mockery, the dome's collapse, the fear, the teamwork, and the final peace that had followed. He whispered quietly to himself, "We endure, always." The ship rose through the clouds, leaving the Academy behind. The stars ahead burned brighter than ever. Epilogue, legacy of endurance years later. The Galactic Coalition would remember the day the war dome broke, and the human who saved it. Every new cadet would study the human response protocol, learning that courage isn't only about power, but also about patience, unity, and heart. And when the AI greeted each new student entering the dome, it would say softly, its voice carrying a trace of that human calm, "Endure, think, hope. That is how humanity survives." The lesson spread across the galaxy, touching worlds that had never understood Earth before. And somewhere among the stars, Elias Trent continued his quiet work, teaching others that the greatest strength is not in how loud one fights, but in how long one stands when everything falls apart. Because in the end, the truth remained clear. Humanity may be small, but it is unbreakable,